Thank you.
And joining us to speak more about the raid at Manafort's home is Peter Kolb. He's the founder of Kolb Law and was also an assistant attorney general of New York State and a former Brooklyn prosecutor. He joins us in studio, and also with us is Robert Chacon, retired FBI special agent. And Robert, I want to begin with you. What are the possible implications of this raid?
Well, the first implication to me is that to get that search warrant, an FBI agent had to swear to an affidavit, and he had to submit a supporting document with that affidavit that spelled out probable cause that there was reason to believe that a crime had been committed and that evidence of that crime was located in that location. And specificity is both a legal and a constitutional requirement in a warrant, so they had to be very specific. And a federal magistrate had to review that probable cause statement and agree with it and say, yes, I agree that there's probable cause to believe that a crime has been committed and that evidence of this crime is located in this place. Now, here's your ability, here's your authority to go in and search that place and look for these items. And it probably specified things like computer hard drives, anything from a thumb drive to a yellow legal pad was probably looked for and mentioned in the warrant, and then able to be seized in that warrant.
And then yet, Peter, this came at a time when Paul Manafort was voluntarily, under threat of subpoena, turning over documents to the Senate. So is this perhaps a signal from Bob Mueller that, look, you know, we're going to take a slightly different tact here?
Yeah, that's absolutely what he's saying, because they met, the Senate Intelligence Committee met with him, and literally the next morning they sort of said, with this search warrant, we don't trust you to keep some of the documents. So he either told them that he had certain documents, or his conversations were different than other people's about what documents he may have had. It's possible Trump Jr. said one of the Russian lawyers gave him documents, and he said, I don't have those documents, and then they boomed the doors. This was, to point out, to Robert's point, this was a no-knock warrant. That's fairly unusual, where they don't knock on the door, and they came in armed and raided his place.
Well, Peter, some of the documents that were retrieved reportedly included Manafort's notes from that meeting with Donald Trump Jr. and the Russian lawyer. Now, if those notes prove or indicate that the meeting was innocuous, how does that stand in terms of proof? Is that sufficient proof, or is that a personal record of what happened and not necessarily going to hold up?
It's possible they're innocuous, and then there would be no crime. But given that there was a search warrant, my guess is it's possible that one of the Russian lawyers turned over some documents on the dirt.
But if his own personal notes indicate nothing happened here, is that enough, or is that a subjective account that doesn't hold water?
It would be possible, depending on what the other notes say. It may be that he didn't write down certain stuff. If it's completely innocuous, then the grand jury will decide that, and that's the reason they have the grand jury.
Well, and Robert, speaking of the grand jury, I mean, we had the news, of course, a couple days ago that Mueller has impaneled 2 grand juries, one in Virginia and one in Washington. But given what you were saying about what's needed for this kind of warrant to go and do essentially a raid, is it possible that perhaps the special counsel and his team of FBI agents who have been detailed to him are a bit farther along in this investigation than a lot of us may realize?
Well, clearly, yes. And when Director Mueller first took over, you know, I made some public statements that I hope we don't hear from them for a while. I hope there's no leaks. I hope they're able to conduct their business in the privacy that they're entitled to and can be effective in. And I expected this to move along at this kind of pace. It's probably a surprise to a lot of people, but this investigation's been going on a while. And these are very good, experienced agents. And it doesn't surprise me at all that a grand jury has been impaneled and that they're probably hearing testimony and getting to look at some of the evidence that's been gathered.
Pete, some Manafort allies say that Mueller could be building a case against Manafort that's not related to the 2016 election, that's an easier case to build, with the idea of getting Manafort to give up some information on President Trump in exchange, cut some kind of a deal. What do you think of that?
I think that's exactly right. When you look at the people in the meeting, you have a son-in-law in Trump Jr., and then you have a bunch of Russian or Russian-American lobbyists. What I would see when I was a prosecutor, the one weak link is Manafort, who has previously there's been discussions that he worked with Ukraine, that there was potential money laundering of $750,000. Essentially what's going on in this game is, I had an old professor who once said to students who said, we broke our tire he's brought him in for the exam on the following day, and they had one question on the exam, and it was, which tire was it? That's the game that's being played right now with all these different people. Different people are saying different things, and they're trying to find out what's missing.
And Robert, is it unusual for a special counsel or his team of FBI agents and prosecutors to, in the course of an investigation, if they uncover crimes such as money laundering, it's not unusual for them to chase down that lead, is it?
No, not at all. But, you know, the money laundering aspect may not be a sidelight to this thing. If you look at the team that, especially the team of prosecutors that Director Mueller put together, I mean, this is an all-star prosecutorial team of experts in money laundering, big corporate law. You have the Enron lawyers. You have people and prosecutors that are very good at following a money trail. And that's, you know, when you look at the makeup of the prosecution team, it kind of tells you a little bit about what direction Director Mueller felt this thing was going to go.
All right. Robert Chacon, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Peter Kolb, thanks for joining us here in studio.